What happens when the most celebrated Little League team in America, paraded through streets, welcomed at the White House, and embraced as national heroes, is suddenly stripped of its title for cheating? What if I told you the kids were never the ones to blame? In 2014, Jackie Robinson West wasn't just a baseball team, they were a symbol. An all-black team from Chicago's most dangerous neighborhoods that rose to win the U.S. Little League Championship. Their story shattered stereotypes, inspired a nation, and captured the attention of millions. They were loved. They were unstoppable, and then they lost everything. This is the story of how 13 kids became national icons, only to be caught in a web of adult lies, forged documents, lawsuits, and accusations that still echo today. What happened behind the scenes? Who blew the whistle and why? And was it all racially motivated? Let's break it down. Jackie Robinson West stormed through the 2014 Little League tournament like a hurricane. They outscored their opponents by unfathomable margins, 29-2 in the state championship and 43-2 in one district game. They weren't just winning, they were dominating. When they reached the Little League World Series in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, they became more than just a team. They became America's team. The city of Chicago embraced them. Celebrities from Spike Lee to Chance the Rapper voiced support. Donations poured in, over $300,000. A player's homeless family was gifted a new home. They met President Obama. They were honored at MLB games. This was no ordinary Little League run. These boys were rock stars. Beneath the parades and press conferences, a storm was brewing. A coach named Chris Janes from Evergreen Park, a team Jackie Robinson West crushed 43-2, raised a startling accusation. The team had illegally recruited players from outside their district. According to Little League rules, all players must live within strict geographic boundaries. Janes alleged that JRW had ignored that rule to stack their roster with suburban stars. At first, Little League dismissed the claims. They said JRW's players were vetted and verified. Case closed. But Janes didn't give up. But what Janes uncovered next would explode the scandal wide open and implicate not just the coaches, but high-level officials who may have forged maps and ignored their own rules for fame and profit. Janes found social media posts, newspaper clippings, and even quotes from politicians and school staff congratulating kids who lived outside JRW's district. One congresswoman praised two players who lived in her suburban district. A teacher said she taught a JRW player at a school in a town miles away. These weren't coincidences. They were breadcrumbs. Still, Little League stuck to their story. They claimed JRW had expanded its boundaries in 2014 with approval. But then, surrounding leagues said they'd never agreed to the expansion. This triggered an intense in-person meeting in Chicago, where it was revealed that JRW had submitted new boundary maps that were never approved by the leagues involved. The maps had been signed off by one man, Michael Kelly, the district administrator with deep ties to JRW. In February 2015, Little League International announced the unthinkable. Jackie Robinson West was stripped of their U.S. championship title. Their coach was suspended. Michael Kelly was banned. The league's president was told to resign. JRW was out. For many, this was a clear-cut case of adults cheating and kids paying the price. But others saw something more sinister, a racially charged campaign to destroy a team that had become too powerful, too visible, and too loved. JRW's parents fought back. Why did Little League let them play the full tournament if questions existed months earlier? Why was Chris Janes silent until the media attention exploded? And why did the organization wait until after the White House visit and ESPN specials to act? The courtroom battles began. Jackie Robinson West sued Little League for defamation. They claimed only 5 of their 13 players were out of district and that documents had been cleared. They accused Little League of using the kids for ratings and revenue, even during an active investigation. They even sued ESPN's Stephen A. Smith for his televised criticism, though the court dismissed that claim under free speech protections. Chris Janes himself would sue Little League, saying they left him vulnerable to death threats by closing the case too early. Meanwhile, his credibility took a hit when he was arrested after mistakenly entering a neighbor's home, trying to confront her husband over a dispute. When all was said and done, this wasn't about effort or talent, because no one questioned that the kids played their hearts out. Jackie Robinson West had earned every roar from the crowd, every base hit, every run scored. They were champions in every way that mattered on the field. But this story wasn't written by the players, it was written by the adults who surrounded them. Court documents would later reveal the painful truth. Jackie Robinson West had submitted altered district maps, redrawing boundaries to include players who technically lived outside their legal limits. Only 5 of the 13 boys on the roster were actually eligible under Little League's official rules. The rest had been brought in from other areas, some from neighboring suburbs, creating what many saw as a super team. And it wasn't just a paperwork error. Michael Kelly, the district administrator who had deep ties to JIRW, approved and submitted these maps without securing proper consent from the other league officials. He had coached in the league for decades, and in trying to help elevate the team to greatness, he violated the very foundation of fairness the league was built on. The tragedy? The boys didn't know. They weren't part of the deception, but they would be the ones forced to carry the burden. But here's the thing. This scandal was never just about baseball. It quickly became a lightning rod for conversations about race, media, reputation, and systemic double standards. Jackie Robinson West wasn't simply a team from Chicago, they were a symbol. A group of black boys from one of the toughest cities in America who rose above their environment, unified by a dream and inspired a nation. When their title was stripped, it felt to many like that dream had been stolen. Not because of a rule infraction, but because the image of black success in a traditionally white-dominated sport had gotten too big to control. Critics pointed to inconsistencies in how Little League enforced residency rules, suggesting that JRW was made into an example the world was all too ready to tear down. Even today, the arguments haven't stopped. Some say rules exist for a reason, and that no team, no matter how beloved, should get a free pass. Others argue that JRW wasn't the only team stretching boundaries, and that punishment fell disproportionately hard because of who the team was and what they represented. What no one can deny is this: Jackie Robinson West played with skill, with poise, and with honor on the field. They stood in the batter's box and faced the same pitches every other kid did, and they won. They waved to cameras, shook hands after games, and carried themselves with class. They proved they were more than stereotypes. They were role models, they were dreamers, and they were champions, even if the record books no longer say so. Many of those boys have grown up, gone to college, played baseball at higher levels, or pursued careers off the field. They carry a memory most kids will never know, the thrill of national victory and the sting of being stripped of it. But they also carry something deeper, the pride of knowing they did nothing wrong. The scandal may have taken their title, but it didn't take their story. Jackie Robinson West still inspires, still challenges the narrative, still reminds us of how high we can fly and how fast we can fall when adults fail to protect what matters most. In the end, this wasn't the biggest Little League cheating scandal ever because of stolen titles. It was the biggest because of what it exposed, that in youth sports the stakes can grow far beyond the diamond, and when glory gets too big, it can swallow the very innocence it was meant to celebrate. If you found this story as jaw-dropping and heartbreaking as we did, hit that like button and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Jackie Robinson West was unfairly targeted, or was this just the system doing its job? And if you want more deep dives into the untold stories of sports, scandals, and history, don't forget to subscribe. We've got a lot more coming your way.